家好，又到咗星期五下午4點半嘅移民幫到你，我係帶你傲視環球嘅 Jenny Tong。今日我哋好榮幸邀請到愛爾蘭領事館嘅總領事。Today it's our great honor to have invited the Consul General of Ireland, Mr. David Costello。咁因為咧我哋咧就會為咗將啲時間咧可以用得更加好啦，咁啊今日主要咧都係講英文嘅，咁啊我咧就會喺適當嘅時候做少少翻譯嘅啫。Well, we want to save time, so you have lots of interesting ideas you want to share with us about Ireland, so we will conduct the whole thing in English, except for like really key highlights.
Okay.
All right. So 咁而家咧我就俾翻個時間 David 介紹一下自己先。I'll pass the time to David. Please introduce yourself.
Okay. 大家好. I have to apologize that I don't speak Cantonese, but I just wanted to say hello. It's a great pleasure to be here with Jenny, and I'm looking forward to talking about Hong Kong, my views of Hong Kong, and to tell you more about Ireland and what it's like to live and be in Ireland.
Okay, so we would like to know, first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about the culture in Ireland?
Well, it's quite an interesting one. I think Hong Kongers would feel very at home in Ireland because there's a great deal of Ireland here in Hong Kong that people are not aware of. I mean, in a very brief review of history in Hong Kong, 9 of the first 15 governors were Irish. 5 of the 20 chief justices before 1997 were Irish. We have Jesuits-run schools we had over 100 Irish Jesuits.
Wow.
Over 80 LaSalle brothers who taught in the LaSalle schools.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And we had some great Irish women here in Hong Kong.
Oh, beautiful women, I'm sure.
Yeah, including the Columban nuns who went into the Ruttenji Hospital in 1949.
I see.
And they led the eradication of TB in Hong Kong throughout the 1950s and 60s. And Beth Coulter, who passed away sadly in 2015.
Oh.
And she was the key administrator in Hong Kong rugby that set up and really put the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens on the map.
Wow, Rugby Sevens is a huge success.
It's a huge. And then most recently we were delighted to have an Irish Hong Kong girl.
I know, that beautiful young girl.
Win 2 Olympic medals for Hong Kong. What a great.
Wow, thank you for the good genes, obviously.
So in many ways, if you go to Ireland, you'll find these connections resonate with you because you see all the street names are Irish, these are names that will be familiar to you. Just to maybe say a few names to make sense, Pottinger, MacDonald, Robinson, Hennessy,
They
Bowen,
are all related to Ireland?
Blake, May Road, the Helen May building.
I see, interesting.
So
all of it.
these are all connected to Ireland, and I suppose for Hong Kongers, they think they don't know Ireland, but when they do go to Ireland, they realise there's great connections.
Interesting. And so for the culture, I think the first thing that a lot of Hong Kong people would know, including myself, is the clover leaves. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, this is interesting. The two symbols is the shamrock. It's a 3-foil or 3-leaf symbol. It was developed by St. Patrick as his symbol of Christianity, and it was used to explain the concept of the Trinity in the context of Christian religion. But interestingly, what I love about it is I have the flag here of Hong Kong, and the symbol of Hong Kong is the Bauhinia. But the Bauhinia is actually named after an Irishman, Henry Blake.
I see.
So if you go and look up the full Latin name of the Bauhinia, it's the Bauhinia Blakeiana, and that Blake is Henry Blake, who was the 12th governor of Hong Kong.
Oh wow, such an interesting, mysterious connection. But I mean, of course, I know the flowers, but I wouldn't have guessed that story. So the clover leaves is like something that brings us good luck, right? That's all we know.
Yeah, well, there's certainly the clover is the 4-leaf clover, but in the Irish context, it's the 3-leaf shamrock, and the shamrock is a symbol that's very closely associated with Ireland. Most people think it's our official symbol, but it's not. Our official symbol is this one here, the harp.
The harp.
And the harp is a musical instrument very much associated with Ireland.
Yes.
And I think I keep saying this to people and nobody has corrected me so far, is that I think Ireland is the only country in the world with a musical instrument as its national emblem.
That must be, that's interesting. I mean, I didn't know that. I thought it's the clover leaves too.
Yeah, no, well, we do. A lot of people, the shamrock is very, very prevalent for people, but the harp is the official one. On my business card, we have the harp in gold.
I see, wow.
And so it's great.
cultural.
And it really emphasises the fact that Ireland is a very cultural, and you can see some of the videos there, with a very sporting kind of nation as well.
It's very beautiful.
And a very green, so we associate the colour green with Ireland very much so.
Right.
And so our big festival is on 17 March, which is St. Patrick's Day, and that's our national day.
Right.
And we have the big seeds, as a city,
Yeah, we really have a lot of support from international communities here, but we do also adore and we want to learn more about our international communities too. And actually, we already have a question from Xiu Ming Chen. Thank you for posting your questions. How is the work culture in Ireland like?
Yeah, well, Ireland's it's an interesting place, Ireland, because of its, shall we say, Catholic kind of origins. We have the soul of the Mediterranean, but the work ethic of the Northern Europeans.
Interesting.
And so,
what is that like then?
Well, you would we've coined the phrase, we work hard and we also play hard. So Ireland is a great place to succeed. It's a very innovative society. I think we were ranked number 11 in the world in the Innovation Index recently.
Wow.
And it's a place where we've got a great deal of entrepreneurship growing up. And so if you're the kind of person that wants to be an entrepreneur, there's a great ecosystem in Ireland to succeed as an entrepreneur. But it's also a great place where we celebrate, where we appreciate, like Hong Kong, we appreciate the value of family, we appreciate the value of friends, and the social life of Ireland is also one that's a very strong cultural dimension to it. So it's in some many societies kind of don't strike that balance well.
Right.
The societies may be very kind of cultural, very, very playful, or connected to families, but the work ethic may not be a strong one. And I know the work ethic for Hong Kongers, they're extraordinarily hardworking. Extraordinarily hardworking people.
We should play more, actually.
Well, this is it, so I think we'll teach you the value of both sides of it, because I think we succeed because, the next phase of where we're going to succeed is not about our ability to be technical at work, it's our ability to build relationships.
Right.
As we move, as societies move up, as societies grow, they tend to move into service cultures. And it's about the connectivity with people is a strong part of it. So strong research, strong innovation, but also the ability to connect and persuade people of ideas, because we are moving, we talk about the Internet of Things, Internet of Ideas, and as we move into an ideas society, that ability to connect and share, I think, is an important skill set.
Very
and it's
well
something
said.
that Ireland has,
So would you say that it's easy for Hong Kong people to, get a job or start a business or, assimilate into Ireland?
It is, it really depends on what you want to do. Like I say, there's a strong vibe there for entrepreneurs if they're bringing ideas, if they want to start businesses. Ireland is very similar in structure to Hong Kong. We have Invest HK and HK TDC. We have those equivalents in Ireland, where they're called the IDA Ireland, that attracts foreign direct investment. But Enterprise Ireland is our HK TDC equivalent, and they really support Indigenous Irish companies looking to export abroad. And in fact, they're one of the biggest venture capitalists in the world, because not only do they support Irish companies, they actually invest and grow the skill base of the Irish company. So if you set up a company in Ireland, you can be sure that the state services will come around you and help you to succeed.
Wow.
So we're always on the lookout for what we call high potential startups, and they're very attractive to very much attracted to Ireland. Ireland is the home, for example, of aviation leasing. We invented aircraft leasing in the 1980s.
Really?
I think, and so at this point, about half the planes in the sky come from leasing companies. The other half are owned by carriers, and 60% of those leased are domiciled in Ireland. So on a normal aviation year, and we know we're not in normal times with the pandemic, but a normal aviation year, 3 in every 10 aircraft above us are from Ireland. They're domiciled in Ireland. So,
is it because of your low corporate tax? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, yeah. Well, we've we've had a very strong policy of attracting foreign direct investment since the late 1950s. Well over 60 years, 70 years now at this stage, and it's because Ireland only became independent in the 1920s. We didn't have the industrial revolution of the late 1800s, so we don't have big indigenous kind of coal, steel factories, and that reflected industrial society. So when we were developing our kind of economic policy, we very much focused on foreign direct investment, and part of that was the low corporate tax rate of 12.5%. It's not the lowest, by the way. There are other countries in Europe with lower rates, but the key about
the lowest, isn't it?
It's quite low. Yeah,
right.
It's below the global minimum taxation of 15% that was recently agreed.
And we have 15 here for corporate tax.
Yeah, and so the new minimum rate will be 15%, and Ireland has signed up to this new OECD deal. But what I'd say about Ireland is not the rate that's important, it's the consistency.
Okay.
People know when they invest in Ireland that there's a predictability about how business happens. So this is a corporate tax rate that we've had since the 1980s.
Wow.
And before that the rate was 10% since the 1960s. So when we're not chopping and changing our tax policies all the time, so people understand when they invest. We know that when people come to Ireland to invest and to make decisions about locating in Ireland, this is not a 2-year decision for them. This is a 10, 15-year decision.
Right.
And they want to have predictability in terms of their cost structures.
Interesting.
And that's what we've done, and that has been the backbone of our economic policy for 50 years now and more, so.
Well, and another thing that I think most of our audience would like to know is tell us about your famous drinks and food. We always talk about food and drinks here.
Yes, yeah. Well, Ireland famously is a home of Guinness.
Right, we know about Guinness.
Yeah, you know about Guinness.
The black beer.
What's less known, which we're trying to focus on this year in terms of promoting Irish food and beverage in Hong Kong, is actually Ireland invented whiskey.
Oh, we didn't know that. I thought it was Scotland.
Yeah, well, see, we'd whiskey at least 150 years before Scotland had.
Really? Wow, I thought it's the Scottish thing.
Yeah, so no, Irish whiskey was the original, and we.
I only know about Irish Baileys.
Yeah, well, that's a whiskey-based drink, so
really?
it's a whiskey cream, so
Okay.
and so Irish whiskey is one of the great things, and in fact, the oldest distillery in the world is in Northern Ireland in a place called Bushmills. It's a little town on the North Ireland coast, and it's if you ever see pictures of Ireland, you'll see them here in the background.
It's really beautiful.
Where you see the Giant's
scenery.
Causeway, which is a little bit like the Geopark in Sycoon, these type of kind of basalt kind of steps. The Giant's Causeway is a UNESCO listed site in Ireland, and just down the road is the home of Bushmills, which is and that was established in 1608.
Wow.
And it's been an active and working distillery since that time, so.
What about food? What kind of Irish food would you share with us?
Yeah, well, we we very typical Western tastes. Food that's unique to Ireland tends to be the lamb stew tends to be our national dish in some ways.
Stew.
Yeah, I like to when I talk to people in Hong Kong, I like to describe it as the Irish hot pot.
Okay.
It's traditionally one of these dishes that are made in big cauldrons in the kitchen, and it's shared in the center of the table. Unlike the hot pot, which you actually cook in. Yeah, well, hot pot you cook in the middle of the table,
right.
Whereas the lamb stew, you kind of bring to the table. And the great thing about lamb stew is actually it usually lasts 2 or 3 or 4 days.
Okay, wow.
And you keep topping it up a little bit. And the older it gets, the better it gets, because it becomes more richer and more flavoursome. But other dishes that would be associated with Ireland is potato and cabbage and apple pie, apple crumble, So
I love apple crumble. I didn't know it's Irish.
Well, it's kind of, there are variations of it, like the Germans would have apple strudel, and apple pie would also be very close, be very near and dear to American and to our British neighbours as well.
Okay.
Potatoes, though, is the staple, whereas the staple dish in Hong Kong tends to be rice-based. Yes. In Ireland,
but
it tends to be potato-based. Yeah.
Interesting. So, we learned so much about the culture, and the next thing that we really want to learn more about is your education, because I know Ireland is like top 10 in the world in terms of education, and then you have a very interesting system, and it's English, and it's part of EU, and you have a lot of headquarters of like the biggest corporations in the world. So it's almost like a guaranteed success for the younger generations. So can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, what's it like? Especially especially for high school.
Yeah, I can. I should reference the fact that we've got Irish dancing on the screen behind us,
yes,
which is
River
beautiful,
dance. Right.
So this is a very famous show in Ireland, River Dance, and really has brought Irish culture to the world in a unique way. So it's been a stunning, and I know this part of the world, they love River Dance. And in fact, I should say that we've got 3 Irish dancing schools in Hong Kong.
Oh, really?
And 2 of them were world champion Irish dance winners in 2020. So feel free to kind of connect in with us on our website at the Irish Consulate here in Hong Kong. We'd be delighted to refer anybody.
Maybe I should learn. It looks like a lot of exercise.
Yeah, it is. It's a stunning performance.
Maybe they learn it in high school.
Well, actually, I learned it when I was 6 years of age. Actually,
in primary school.
Yeah, so we tend to go to Irish dance classes when we're very young, but some people stick at it and do it a lot longer than I did. Well, we were talking about education, I think, weren't we? So apologies about that.
Right. So funny, we got a remark. They said Irish rock, and is that Baileys? And then they were asking, it's all about the custard, not all the apple crumble.
Not all about the apple crumble. I think somebody
crumbles.
has already been to Ireland.
And the ice cream.
Yeah. Excellent.
About the education.
In education, yeah. I mean, what I should say, of course, we're English-speaking country, so many people don't naturally think of Ireland as a destination for third-level education. But because
many more are considering now.
Yeah, so it has become quite popular, particularly after Brexit. People want to have connections into the European Union.
Right.
And while there's a natural kind of gravitation towards Britain for a lot of people here, as their next door neighbour, we're still members of the European Union. We're still a common law country as well.
True.
And so coming to Ireland, you're coming into a very stable education system that has been very successful to years. In fact, most people kind of say to us that your corporate tax rate is what has made you economically successful.
What I thought.
That's not the case at all.
Oh, okay.
It's the fact in the 1960s we introduced free education for all children. And we ended up with a very educated workforce by the early 70s. And as we joined the European Union in 1973, a lot of companies started to look to Europe for investment, and Ireland was the natural place. English-speaking, common law, highly educated workforce.
Also, it's a combination.
And it was a combination of those factors. So we've had free primary and second level education since the 1960s. And since over the last decade, we have free third level education as well.
Yeah, we want to know more about the free tertiary education, which is university.
Yeah, well, at university level, we have free university fees.
That's very unusual.
Yeah, but
precious.
That's for residents of Ireland, so not citizens, but residents. And you need to be resident for at least 3 years.
Some of my clients would be very happy to know. Because otherwise, if you study, in the UK, it costs us a lot. Yeah. So the education fee would be, if it's free, or even if you have to pay, I think it's a lot less compared to England, I guess.
Yeah, that would be the case. Yeah. So it's very, very good.
Okay. Yeah, I'll translate a little bit. I'll just take a minute to translate a little bit.
Okay.
咁我哋呢個愛爾蘭領事啦，咁 David 就頭先講咗好多關於文化生活嘅嘢啦。咁其實佢哋一定要有少少文化同埋工作上嘅 balance 嘅，即係譬如好似頭先講到啦，就係佢哋中意做嘢啦，咁啊好勤力做嘢啦，稅即係嗰個如果做生意嘅話，咁生意嘅稅就係12.5% 啦，即係營商嘅稅啦。咁如果你係喺度做生意之餘嘅，你係真係即係唔係即係你會係直頭係移民嘅入籍嘅話咧，咁其實咧你啲細路仔嚟讀書咧，你一嚟到你係居民咧，就已經係即刻有呢一個免費嘅教育㗎啦。咁然之後你由最少住滿3年咧，你未入籍都好啦嚇。咁你未入籍都好，你讀大學咧，其實佢而家咧就係話你都可以係有免費嘅大學嘅。咁即係你要揀翻即係一個適合你嘅大學啦。咁然之後咧，咁講開生活嗰度咧，頭先都介紹咗啦。咁愛爾蘭嗰個文化咧，其實咧，好多方面咧同香港都好似嘅嚇，咁佢哋做嘢好搏殺啊，跟住啲人咧亦都係即係 work hard play hard 啦，咁同埋咧咁嗰個教育程度啦，因為佢哋小學同中學都免費啦，而家大學都係啦，咁變咗佢哋咧其實有好多人咧都係可以即係有好高嘅教育程度嘅，咁再加上佢係一個英語國家啦，咁佢又近英國啦，亦都仲係歐盟啦，咁嗰個好多就吸引好多外來嘅學生啦，即係包括香港啦，係想喺呢個愛爾蘭受教育嘅，咁咧然之後就因為你亦都知道佢有好多唔同國 家嘅大嘅總部，譬如 Facebook 啊、Google 啊、Yahoo 嗰啲咧，都會喺呢個都柏林 Dublin 咧係有嗰個headquarters 即係佢總部啦。咁所以咧讀完大學之後咧，或者你讀緊大學嘅時候，你揾個 internship 咧就好容易啦。讀完之後咧，你要去嗰啲地方做嘢咧，亦都係好容易嘅。咁或者你可以去歐盟嘅國家做嘢咧，都係非常之容易嘅。Sorry, so a lot of translation.
No, it's good.
So then I think the next thing they want to know about is like, we talk about culture, we talk about education, and so because most of our audience are like, savvy investors, so they would like to know a little bit more about, investment opportunities or business opportunities if they actually move over there, or even if they don't move, they want to just, invest like overseas investments. So what would you recommend?
Well, Irish markets have changed quite a lot over the last couple of years. We are a very big financial market, not quite the international market that Hong Kong is, but what we are is we're world leaders in certain spaces. In the passive investment space, passive funds, UCITS as they would be known here, Ireland and Luxembourg are the two biggest destinations in Europe. Euronext Dublin, which is our stock exchange, is the leading destination in the Euronext family for bonds, especially green finance, and we are the second biggest ETF market in the world.
Okay, we have to definitely translate this part because they're mostly investors. So 第一樣嘢咧，頭先David 提到咧，就係話嗰個佢嗰個投資嘅話咧，全球咧喺基金呢一個即係基金註冊嘅地方咧，其實最 top 嘅就係講緊最多人揀嘅就係盧森堡啦。第二咧就已經係愛爾蘭㗎啦。咁啊，另外咧佢哋有一啲唔同嘅基金啦，嗰個叫做 you mentioned bond ETF。Yeah,
ETFs and bonds.
係啦，咁就係啲 ETF 嘅 ETF， 我唔知中文叫咩，即係嗰啲external traded funds 係啦，即係咁佢咧就係 track 翻佢個 underlying 嗰啲嘢嘅啫。譬如話 ETF 係債券嘅 ETF 咧，咁佢咧就係 track 翻唔同嘅債券啊，或者係股票咁樣樣啦。咁而愛爾蘭咧有個 green fund，you mentioned green bonds ETF。
Yeah, it's Dublin is the destination for green finance in the Euronext markets.
係啦，咁佢喺歐洲呢一個嘅即係嗰個綠色嗰個基金咧，其實即係 anyways 係其中一樣啦，就係最 top 嘅destination for investments.
I mean, property is an area that obviously Hong Kongers are crazy about.
I know, people love to invest in properties here.
So I don't think anywhere in the world is as expensive as Hong Kong.
Right.
The Irish property sector is changing radically over the last 10, 15 years. We were a country that had a very, very high percentage of home ownership. That has changed quite a lot in the last 10 years, and there's now space for a professional kind of, shall we say, landlord sector. And we're seeing new legislation came in place recently that allows real estate investment trusts. So if people don't want to go in and buy property, they can go into real estate trusts that buy property en masse. So there is an evolving market in Ireland, and that creates certain opportunities. I know in terms of our social housing provision, it used to be all provided through building by local authorities. Increasingly, local authorities are now going into the rental sector and doing long-term leases with landlords in which they take the property off them for 10, 15, 20 years, and they provide a certain rate that's pegged to the market rent. So there's a security of income, and the responsibility for the property lies with the local authority. So it is a kind of complex thing. The only thing I'd say is, like any investment, you should take professional advice,
Right.
So just because somebody comes and dangles Ireland in front of you, as with any other country, be it the US or UK or anywhere, you should always take your own, sound out your own professional advice, and as
That's a disclaimer. I should translate that part. 咁我哋嘅總領事David 就好好啦，咁就話其實愛爾蘭咧都房地產投資或者各方面咧都係好蓬勃嘅。咁不過咧就佢頭先提咗幾種啦，咁我哋都會話你如果真係去愛爾蘭投資之前咧，你都揾翻你哋自己嘅做一定嘅 research 或者有牌照嘅投資顧問啦，即係揾咗我呢啲啦，咁再傾下嘅。咁咧但係關於愛爾蘭嘅房地產咧，我另外都有啲嘢問下 David 嘅喎。But I think it's in some specifics that our audience would like to know. For example, if they want to buy an apartment in Dublin, because I think most of them, if they move, they would like to or invest, they would choose Dublin. So let's say, what is the comparison, like percentage, or if you compare to Hong Kong, like what is the prices like for buying a property in Dublin?
I would say for a third of the price of what you pay in Hong Kong, you can get 3 times the size of an apartment. That's probably the best way to say that. You know?
So wow, so 30% you get 3 times the size. So that would be like.
A lot depends on what part of Dublin you want to live in. You know, if you're happy to live out in the suburbs, there's great value. You know, Ireland I grew up in, every home had a garden. You know, so which is quite alien in a Hong Kong context.
Right.
You know,
right.
But increasingly, since really over the last 25 years, the infill kind of developments in Dublin have tended to be apartment driven, and so the quality of the apartments have become better as the years move on. But we do have minimum standards and minimum sizes for apartments.
Right.
And usually, I mean, the size of apartments in Hong Kong would never wash in Dublin.
300
they're minimum.
here.
They're
Maybe
minimum,
200 here.
minimum
Or
1,000.
150.
Yeah, but minimum, we're talking minimum 800,000 square feet. Minimum.
800
to 1,000 square feet
Okay.
for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
And higher for 2, 3. And we build a lot of 2-bedroom apartments and 3-bedroom apartments and 3-bedroom houses, you know.
Okay.
So I mean, my own very modest, say, semi-detached home in
Right.
Ireland.
You live in a nice.
Is about 1,400 square feet, you know, and that's very average
Right.
in size. Whereas in Hong Kong,
it would be
that
like
would be
400.
considered quite small. Yeah,
Right, so
yeah.
I just translate quickly. It's like 頭先阿 David 就講啦，咁佢即係因為香港人一定會中意問話買樓嘅嘢啦，咁佢話1/3嘅價錢你就買到3倍嘅 size 啊，咁啊即係如果你平時喺香港用呢個300萬買嘅樓，3000萬買嘅樓咧，嗰邊就1000萬，但係3000萬咧香港可能你都係買到1000尺嘅啫，咁嗰邊變成3000尺嚇，咁一來一回你可以計數啦，咁我覺得都真係幾有趣啦。咁 Another thing is we got questions from the floor.
Okay.
They would like to know a bit more about your personal tax. It is complicated as the UK or the US tax system.
Ireland is consistently, like Hong Kong, is consistently ranked as one of the easiest places to do business. So personal tax is at 2 levels. If you're an investor and self-employed, you do file your own tax returns. Most of that is done online and it's mostly very straightforward, unless you have a very complicated kind of corporate structure that requires professional advice. For many people, they can file their own tax returns straightforward.
And it's not like worldwide. It's not like the US.
It's not a global tax system.
Okay.
No, you pay what you pay and what you invest in Ireland. If you're an employee in Ireland, everything is deducted at source by your company, so you don't have any tax liabilities unless you earn additional income outside of your employment.
Okay.
So if you're working for Facebook or Google, they're responsible for your tax returns, not
Okay.
you. You know. So, but if you have investments and you have dividends coming in from those investments, then you have to file your own tax return. But like I say, very straightforward. It's
Okay.
all online based, and our revenue system has been really praised as a very, very easy system to do business with.
I think we need some numbers. So it's like they would like to know. I think, for example, if they make $1 million Hong Kong dollars a year, like 100,000 euros a year, what kind of like percentage would they be paying?
Well, I presume you're talking about as an employee of a company.
As an employee, right?
Yeah, so as an employee, there's a pay-as-you-earn system. It's a graduated tax system. It starts off where there's a certain amount of tax-free allowances that you get. So a certain threshold is not taxable. Then there's a certain threshold, maybe 20, 30,000, where you're paying tax at 20%. And then after that, on the balance, you start to pay tax at 40%.
Okay.
But it's a higher tax system than Hong Kong.
Okay.
But then we have a whole series of benefits that kind of match that, including if you're unemployed, the unemployment benefit rate is approaching €200 a week.
Okay.
And during the lockdown, we had a very strong welfare culture to mind people that were out of work during the pandemic, and many people were getting paid as much as €300 per week.
Wow.
So that's
this is fantastic. I need to translate this part. 咁頭先阿 David 就講啦，好簡單啲講啦，個稅制其實就係話，如果你打工嘅話咧，咁啊梗係你老闆幫你報稅啦。咁佢都係頭2-3萬我講歐羅啦嚇，咁都係免稅，有個免稅額啦。咁啊跟住你頭2-3萬就 basic 有個即係好簡單嘅免稅額啦。之後你到咗2-3萬就俾一個 percentage 啦。再之後咧你就跳上去嘅話咧就俾 up to 40% 嘅。咁啊40% 嗰啲咁啊即係 anyways 你報稅嘅時候，你公司都會幫你即係計咗佢噶啦，咁啊另外咧就係佢哋福利好多，咁啊最近 pandemic 嘅時候都有成€300一個 week 咁樣樣啊，有啲人係啦，咁 and then we have another question. Do you foresee any change in tax treaties between the US and Ireland in the coming years?
It's not on our radar. Ireland has one of the biggest networks of double taxation agreements in the world, which we have a double taxation agreement with Hong Kong, which means then if you're doing business here and in Hong Kong, there's a recognition between the two tax systems that allow you to declare your income in one jurisdiction or the other and not incur double taxation. We have a similar agreement with the US. I don't see any changes to that in the near term. I mean, Ireland is the biggest destination for foreign direct investment from the US worldwide. We have Facebook, Google, Apple. We have 9 of the top 10 pharma companies in the world, all with significant presences in Ireland. And I think something like 18 of the top 20 born on the internet companies all are headquartered in Ireland. We've got some amazing foreign direct investment there, and a stability in the tax system is an important part of them doing
I'll
business.
just take a short translation. Just 其實David 就講咗啦嘛，頭先又多謝 Jeffrey 嘅問題啦。咁其實就暫時咧應該個稅制咧就唔會點樣變住嘅嚇。咁你問嗰個問題就答咗你啦。咁咧就跟住I think something also very interesting. Many audience would like to know is, do you think Ireland is a good destination for Hong Kong people, for education or migration, investments, and why do you think so?
Well, the last Lord Mayor of Dublin was her family are from Hong Kong.
Really?
So
you told me last time. What's her name again?
Hazel Chu. She was Lord
from
Mayor
Hong
of
Kong.
Dublin. Yeah, so she finished
her family is from Hong Kong.
Her family is from Sha Tin and from Shung Shui.
Oh, wow.
So her mum and dad went to Ireland in the 1970s, worked in a restaurant, met, married, and had a few children.
Wow, that's a success story.
Yeah, Hazel then went to university in Ireland. She became the first Asian person to be called to the bar, I think, in Ireland, or to graduate law. So, and so she has gone on to become a Green Party politician in Ireland and was the last Lord Mayor of Dublin, and she finished her term last July.
Wow.
We have some great stories. I mean, in the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens in 2019, the Irish team came over. One of the players who became very famous, Greg O'Shea, for those that like popular culture, an English program called Love Island. He was the winner of that in 2020.
Okay.
But he was one of the key players on the Irish Rugby Sevens team in 2019. His grandfather was a Hong Konger.
Okay.
Went to Limerick in Ireland in the 1950s and opened the first Chinese restaurant in Limerick.
Okay.
So there's great success stories of Hong Kongers going to Ireland.
Right, let me just share this too immediately. People can't wait to hear that. 咁頭先就問David咧，其實愛爾蘭係咪一個好適合香港投資移民升學嘅地方啦？咁其實佢就話絕對係嘅。咁因為我哋一個香港人啊叫做Rachel Chu 啦，咁咧個 parents 咧佢爹哋媽咪咧原本咧就喺香港嘅，咁移咗民去愛爾蘭之後咧，佢個女喺愛爾蘭讀書啦，讀完大學之後咧就入咗政府啦，跟住就做咗第一個喺愛爾蘭嘅亞裔啊，或者係即係我哋香港人啦，係做到佢嘅 Lord。I don't know how to translate Lord in Chinese, but I'll just call it Lord。係啦，就係Lord，我都唔知中文點樣譯嚇。總之係佢係好高嘅職位啦，有呢個職位係即係我覺得都係香港人嘅驕傲啦。咁另外都有啲好勁嘅 Rugby Seven 啦，打棒球Rugby 嗰啲人啦，好出名嘅又係喺個 grandparents， 即係佢個爹哋媽咪再之前嗰代咧，就都係喺香港移民過去嘅。咁即係其實真係愛爾蘭係有好多我哋香港人嘅成功案例啊！咁你哋即係如果有啲咁樣嘅諗法，想即係投資或者移民過去啦，當然可以揾翻我哋Ice Global 幫下你手啦咁樣樣。好啦，they have one more question. This channel is high standard. Oh, thank you very much. So.
It's
Rachel Chu.
Hazel Chu.
Oh, Hazel Chu, my Rachel. Hazel Chu, right? So, I think one more thing, before we wrap up, is that people would like to know about what Irish people or what you in particular think of Hong Kong. 即係我想同David 問佢而家對香港，即係對我哋有啲咩諗法咧，或者有啲咩想同我哋分享 or anything you want to share with us, at a very critical time right now in Hong Kong. You want to do something like share what you like about us? I mean, assuming you love us.
Yeah, well, I came in 2018, so I've seen the changes in Hong Kong in recent years. The one thing that hasn't changed about Hong Kong is about how wonderful the people are. Hong Kong are amazing people.
Thank you. Amazing people.
I mean, if you ask me what I
We
don't
are
like about
amazing
Hong,
people.
it's the humidity in July and August.
Right.
But what I do love about Hong Kong is the people are genuinely amazing. I've met some
thank you.
really
Am I
warm-hearted
included?
people. Yeah, of course, Jenny. Of course,
Thank
Jenny.
you.
And so with that then comes a lot of great culture, great kind of aspects to it. I mean, I was very fortunate to go and see the Chinese orchestra. An amazing musical
you like the
performances. Just incredible musical performances.
Right, thank you.
The culture of the place is stunning. I love the history, and I've been really sucked into the Irish history.
I know, you're
here,
like a historian here.
Irish road names.
Right.
But actually what strikes me is that, when I came to Hong Kong, the images you see on the TV is of Hong Kong Island and Kowloon and built up areas and very intensely built, densely built housing. But the reality here is that 6% of the land mass of Hong Kong is residential housing, and 60% of Hong Kong is actually green space. And so it's been great to kind of get out and see the greenery of Hong Kong. I'm very fortunate, and I got a car recently, so I've been exploring the new territories.
You told me you're driving a little bit.
Yeah, I told you about. I found this wonderful space called Deep Bay Road.
Yeah, I don't even know that.
It's a headland road from Yuen Long through into Tuen Mun. And on that roadway, these wonderful views of Shenzhen Bay and look across to Shenzhen lighting up. If you go there in the evening, just as the sun is setting, you see the lights of Shenzhen coming on from a very rural part of Hong Kong. It's so, but then, I've really strong connections with like the Lai Chi Wo village up in Plover Country Park.
Right.
And that was an abandoned village, and many of the ancestors in that village went to Belfast in Ireland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Interesting.
So they've just been awarded the UNESCO's sustainability listings, and I hope to go there in a couple of weeks' time for the ceremony presenting the UNESCO certificate.
Interesting.
So great connections.
Yeah, I just need to translate a little bit here. Thank you very much, David, for your love for Hong Kong. David 其實咧就話好中意香港啦，特別係香港人啦。佢話佢18年嗰時嚟啦，到而家佢都覺得香港係香港人啦，包括我有份下，就話好 amazing 嘅，即係超正啦。總之同埋香港又好靚啦。佢成日即係佢最近有揸車周圍去，佢覺得香港其實有好多郊區嘅地方咧係好綠化啦、好靚啦咁樣樣。同埋即係佢又覺得即係嗰個雖然而家即係我覺得即係香港亦都其實8、9月可能潮濕啲，但係佢話其實都 OK 嘅咁樣樣天氣方面。So I think let's see on the floor. Somebody asked you, is that the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Hazel Chill?
Right.
Oh, yeah. So that's the one. Thank you for our audience Googling it and copy and paste here. It's very interesting. So, last thing people want to know is like, what is your favorite food in Hong Kong, if you love Hong Kong food?
Hong Kong food's great. So I never miss the opportunity to go and eat dim sum anytime I can.
Yeah, I love dim sum too.
And char siu as well.
Char siu. So you love dim sum to my char siu.
Yeah. So I mean, the food offering here is amazing.
And English tea, Hong Kong English tea.
Yeah, well, I call it breakfast tea. Because there's an Irish breakfast tea as well.
Okay.
So we have variations of it. But I do like breakfast tea, and I like Earl Grey tea. I'm not a coffee drinker, sadly. Otherwise, Irish coffee would be an offering, So, but yeah. So I'm very, very happy when I'm in either a local Hong Kong restaurant or any other restaurant in Hong Kong. It's
Okay,
great,
that's good.咁David 就好中意香港嘢啦，最中意就係點心同埋叉燒啦。So before we wrap up, I want to know like if there is any more questions from the floor, I give each maybe a minute or two. And this is funny. They were asking if you like the 雞蛋仔. You know what is the 雞蛋仔? 雞蛋仔 is like it's a very like a new what do you call like egg tart, but it's not exactly tart. Like one little round thing like egg. But into like they make it into ice cream and everything now.
Yeah, well, my
in
problem.
The peak, I saw it.
My problem when I came in 2018, they looked very slim and elegant like you. And I've eaten far too many egg tarts since I came to Hong Kong. So. Right.
Okay, so egg waffle. Yeah, that's egg waffle. Yeah. Thank you for the translation. Yeah, egg waffle.
Yeah, it's a problem. I'm eating too many of them.
Oh no, you're still slim. Don't worry about it. So we pretty much time to wrap up today. So if there's no more questions, I would like to thank David. Do you anything you want to share with our audience before we say goodbye?
Well, we have two very good Irish pubs here in Hong Kong, I should say. Max Sorley's is up in Soho in mid-levels, and there's a couple of other chains of them. And then there's the Delaney's franchise as well. And
we know Delaney's.
Delaney's in Cyberport, one in Lockhart Road and one over in TST as well. And actually, if you go in, you kind of get a good flavour of Irish food. I can guarantee you the best pint of Guinness is in Asia is here in Hong Kong.
Oh, wow.
Because they're very talented barmen that have learned to trade. You know, there's a certain way of kind of pouring that. And of course, there's Irish whiskey available there as well. So, so if anybody wants to kind of get that sense, please frequent there, and feel free to stay in touch with us through our website, or we're on Facebook, or we're on Twitter, and we're on LinkedIn, and we usually use the handle @IrelandInHK.
OK， 咁好簡單講咧，就係David 咧就話即係香港好多著名嘅愛爾蘭嘅酒吧同埋餐廳咁樣樣啦。咁如果你有時間咧，咁梗係走去即係幫襯下啦。咁另外咧就係話佢話全世界 the best Irish，do you say the best Guinness
in Asia，
即係佢話我哋有全世界最好嘅亞洲最好嘅健力士嚇。咁就we got a very interesting comment from our audience. Don't eat too much char siu. It's not good for health, but it's very funny. So we had a very good time today, and I really appreciate your joining us. And sorry if we didn't translate everything. I'm sure you know most of our audience English is like excellent. So I would once again thank you, David, and I'm sure there will be a lot more people inquiring about Ireland, investing, and even moving there. So I wish everyone a happy weekend. You want to say something?
Yeah, I should, for the younger people under 30, now that the rest of the world is opening up post-pandemic, our working holiday agreement is going to be reopening for applications. So if you're interested in travelling and working in Ireland for a year, taking our working holiday is an easy visa-free way to travel to Ireland. Anyway, Hong Kongers don't need visas to go on holidays, so I hope to meet you all in Ireland on holiday someday.
I have to translate this part. 咁David 就講話佢哋而家又會遲啲會開翻嗰個working holiday 啦。咁大家如果想去做一年嘢生活體驗下咧，咁大家可以去下呢一個即係了解一下關於佢哋嘅 working holiday 啦。咁就係啦，咁多謝大家啦。咁喺呢度都要同大家講再見啦。咁下個禮拜五同一時間同大家再見。Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you. Bye bye.
Bye.